Ashcroft Hall had never glowed brighter. Chandeliers spilled golden light over the grand ballroom, where Berkshire's elite mingled in a whirl of silk, pearls, and laughter. Silver trays clinked, the scent of truffle and champagne drifting through the air, while an auctioneer's practiced voice rose above the hum. Tonight, every bid for the Ashcroft Charity Equestrian Soiree promised hope for children's hospitals and, just maybe, a chance at glory for someone's stable. Lady Victoria Ashcroft glided through the crowd, head held high, her eyes scanning every guest. She moved with the cool confidence of someone born into both money and command, her smile reserved for the highest donors and old rivals alike. Beyond the bright windows, a different sort of electricity charged the night. The English countryside had been holding its breath for days, thick clouds piling up over the rolling hills. As the first clap of thunder rumbled in the distance, few inside the hall paid it much mind. But out in the stables, every horse felt it. Ears flicked, hooves stamped, nostrils flared. Among them, one mare stood out, her golden coat nearly glowing even in the dim stall, her posture taut and proud. Aurelia, former show-jumping champion, the centerpiece of tonight's auction. Rumor had it Aurelia would fetch 7 figures. Cameras from ITV were set up by the ring, eager to capture her parade for the live broadcast. Finn Morgan, pressed in among the serving staff, caught a glimpse of her through the stable window, and his heart squeezed tight. He remembered the feel of her breath on his palm, the warmth of her flank on cold mornings, how his world had crashed the day she was led away to pay his family's debts. Now, standing in borrowed shoes and an ill-fitting vest, he was just another shadow in the crowd. As the clock struck 8, the bidding for Aurelia began. The room pulsed with excitement, paddle numbers shot up, and the price soared. Finn watched, knuckles white around a tray of empty glasses. Each number felt like another door slamming shut. Suddenly, lightning forked outside. A flash so bright it seared through the stained glass and sent a shudder through the old walls. A heartbeat later, the ballroom plunged into darkness. Gasps echoed, laughter turning nervous. Someone fumbled for their phone, another called out for the staff. But in the stables, the world erupted. Horses thrashed in their stalls, startled by the sizzle of ozone and the shock of sudden night. A crash rang out, the sound of a wooden door splintering, a metal latch giving way. Aurelia, eyes wild, burst through her stall, mane streaming like a banner behind her. With a leap, she cleared the paddock fence, hooves skidding on the rain-slick grass. Out front, guests rushed to the windows just in time to see a golden blur vanish into the storm. ITV's backup generator flickered, cameras rolling as chaos spilled from the stables to the ballroom. The live broadcast cut in just as a soaked handler shouted, "She's loose! The Palomino's gone!" Viewers across Britain watched as headlights swept over empty fields, rain coming down in sheets. The story took flight before anyone could stop it. A £1 million champion mare had escaped, and all of Berkshire was in uproar. In the confusion, Finn ducked outside, heart pounding. He caught a last glimpse of Aurelia's silhouette racing toward the tree line, her muscles bunching, thunder rolling overhead. All around him, security scrambled, guests chattered, Lady Victoria's commands snapped through the dark. Someone shouted to call the police. Flashlights bobbed across the grounds, voices growing frantic. Inside, the auctioneer tried to restore order. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain calm. We have every confidence our team will recover the mare promptly." But no one was listening. Every phone was out, social media ablaze with rumors. The word stolen was already on someone's lips, and Finn felt a chill that had nothing to do with the rain. In that moment, a plan started forming in his mind. He couldn't leave Aurelia alone in the wild, not after all they'd been through. If anyone could find her, it was him. The boy who'd once whispered secrets into her ear, who'd watched his whole life crumble and still loved her enough to hope. Just then, Lady Victoria's sharp eyes found Finn among the staff. "You, stable boy, check the north fields and hurry!" Her tone allowed no argument. Finn nodded, swallowing hard. He sprinted toward the edge of the grounds, ignoring the mud pulling at his shoes, his chest tight with something between fear and determination. Lightning split the sky again, illuminating the vast, tangled landscape beyond Ashcroft Hall. Somewhere out there, Aurelia ran, alone, frightened, and hunted. The hunt for the golden mare had begun, and in that storm-tossed night, nothing would ever be the same. Unbeknownst to Finn, every step he took was being watched, not just by the guests and Lady Victoria, but by the world. Because ITV's cameras, still rolling, had captured the exact moment Aurelia broke free. Her leap, her wild grace, the streak of gold against the night. The clip hit social media within minutes. The phrase, "million-pound mare on the run," trending before dawn. Reporters descended on Ashcroft Hall, flashbulbs popping even as the rain hammered down. And Finn, mud-splattered and alone at the edge of the estate, knew only one thing for certain. He would find Aurelia no matter the cost, even if it meant defying the law, the Ashcrofts, and the world itself. The dawn over Lake Windermere arrived slow and gray, the storm's fury replaced by a thick morning mist that clung to every tree and blade of grass. Finn Morgan barely slept. All night he'd replayed the chaos at Ashcroft Hall, the shock in Lady Victoria's voice, the flash of Aurelia's golden mane vanishing into darkness. He'd trudged home in drenched silence, mind racing with half-formed plans, heart hammering with hope and dread. Now, at the edge of his uncle's boathouse, a ramshackle structure nestled among reeds and willows by the lake. Finn tried to shake off his exhaustion. The world was still, the only sound a pair of ducks splashing near the pier. Uncle Hugh had always claimed the water calmed his nerves, but today, Finn found no peace in the gentle lapping of waves. He was just about to turn inside when a sound stopped him cold. It was faint, but unmistakable. The whinny of a horse, raw and desperate, drifting from the woods across the narrow lane. Finn's breath caught. He scanned the tree line, every sense sharpening. Could it really be? He didn't hesitate. Boots slipping in the dew, he scrambled toward the trees, following the sound through brambles and ferns, branches whipping at his face. There, at the edge of a muddy clearing, he saw her. Aurelia. Her once gleaming coat was streaked with mud, her sides heaving. She limped, favoring her left foreleg, eyes wide with pain and panic. For a heartbeat, Finn froze, hardly daring to believe she was real. Then Aurelia's head swung toward him. Recognition flickered in her gaze, mingled with fear. "Easy, girl." Finn's voice was low, gentle, the way he'd spoken to her as a boy, back when the world was simpler. He inched closer, hands open, heart pounding. "It's me, Finn. I'm not going to hurt you, promise." Aurelia's ears twitched. She took a shaky step, then stopped, trembling. Behind him, dry twigs snapped. Uncle Hugh, drawn by the noise, emerged from the trees. A burly man with a weathered face and steel-gray beard, Hugh took one look at Aurelia and whistled low. "Well, I'll be... That's not just any stray, is it?" he said. Finn shook his head. voice barely more than a whisper. She's the one. The mare from the hall. Hugh's eyes narrowed. You realize every copper in Cumbria is probably looking for her by now. Finn nodded. She's hurt, Uncle. We can't just leave her. For a moment, Hugh just stared at him, sizing up the situation like he might a busted engine or a leaky hull. Then, with a grunt, he jerked his thumb toward the boathouse. Get her inside, quick! We'll patch her up, figure the rest out later. The next few minutes passed in a blur. Finn coaxed Aurelia forward with soft words and slow movements, every step a test of trust, rebuilt on memories and pain. When Aurelia hesitated at the water's edge, Finn slipped off his jacket and draped it across her withers, whispering old promises. I'll keep you safe. I'm here. You're not alone. Together, they made their way into the shadowy safety of the boathouse, Uncle Hugh barring the door behind them. Inside, the place smelled of old wood, motor oil, and the faint tang of lake water. Hugh rummaged through a battered first aid kit, emerging with gauze, scissors, and a bottle of iodine that looked older than Finn. Hold her steady, Hugh muttered, crouching by Aurelia's leg. The cut was deep but clean, likely from a sharp branch in her frantic flight. Finn stroked Aurelia's neck, murmuring as Hugh cleaned and stitched the wound with calloused hands. Aurelia shivered at the sting, but never bolted, her trust anchored in Finn's presence. When it was done, Finn slumped against a workbench, exhaustion finally crashing over him. Aurelia nuzzled his shoulder, breath warm against his skin. He almost laughed, a wild, breathless sound. We did it, girl. But outside, the world hadn't stopped turning. Sirens sounded faint and far away, growing closer, then receding. The storm may have passed, but the danger hadn't. Uncle Hugh cleaned up, eyes sharp. You know this is temporary, right? Sooner or later, someone's gonna notice. Finn nodded, worry etching deep lines across his young face. I couldn't let her get taken again. Not after everything. There was a knock at the side door. Sharp, rapid. Both men tensed, but it was only Alice Carter, Finn's oldest friend and the one person he trusted beyond blood. She'd biked over with a bag of groceries, concern written plain across her face. You're in trouble, aren't you? She said, not waiting for an answer. Then she spotted Aurelia and her eyes widened. Oh my God! Is that… Keep your voice down, Finn hissed. He pulled Alice inside, quickly explaining what had happened, from the lightning at the soirée to the frantic escape and Aurelia's battered arrival. Alice listened, mouth agape. They'll be searching every barn and field for miles. You can't keep her hidden here forever. I know, Finn said, voice rough. But she needs time to heal. Just a few days. Please, Alice, don't say a word to anyone. Alice hesitated, glancing from Finn's earnest face to the wounded mare. Finally, she nodded. All right, but you're gonna need help. As the sun broke through the clouds, shafts of gold lighting up the boathouse, Finn allowed himself a moment of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could stay ahead of the world long enough to save Aurelia. But outside, search parties fanned out across the countryside. Reporters swarmed Ashcroft Hall, and the clip of Aurelia's escape had already gone viral. The clock was ticking. Inside the boathouse, 3 friends and a wounded champion prepared for whatever would come next, bound together by loyalty, desperation, and a glimmer of defiant hope. The boathouse by Windermere was still, save for the steady rhythm of Aurelia's breathing and the gentle creak of ropes against the dock outside. Finn sat on a battered stool, staring at the mare as she dozed fitfully on a bed of old canvas tarps. The tension of the past hours hung heavy in the air, but a strange quiet had settled in, a lull between storms, both literal and otherwise. Alice perched nearby, knees hugged to her chest, eyes flicking between Finn and Aurelia as if trying to puzzle out the invisible threads that tied them together. After a while, Alice broke the silence. "You haven't slept in 2 days, you know." She nudged Finn's foot with her own, gentle but insistent. "If anyone's going to help her, you need to take care of yourself, too." Finn tried to smile, but it came out lopsided, his mind adrift in memories that wouldn't let go. "You remember when we were kids?" Finn began, voice soft. "How I'd always talk about running away? I used to think if things ever got too bad, I'd just saddle up Aurelia and go. Didn't even matter where." He looked up at Alice, searching her face for understanding. "Back then, after Mom died, she was all I had. Dad couldn't get out of bed for months, you know. There were days I'd sit in that freezing stable just listening to her breathe, pretending nothing outside mattered." Alice reached out, resting her hand on Finn's arm. "You never told me how bad it was." Finn shrugged, a hollow laugh escaping his lips. "What was there to say? You were always the brave one, climbing trees and chasing after foxes. Me, I was just trying to hold everything together." He glanced at Aurelia, her chest rising and falling slowly, a golden island in a world that kept shifting under his feet. "She kept me sane, taught me how to get back up when I fell, even if all I wanted was to stay down." The memory washed over him. The first time he'd seen Aurelia, just a foal, her legs too long for her body, eyes impossibly big and curious. His mother had brought her home as a surprise, the last gift before the illness took her away. Finn remembered the way Aurelia had nuzzled his hand, the way she'd followed him across the pasture, fearless and bright. For years, they'd been inseparable. Finn and Aurelia, the scrappy kid and his golden shadow. Then the bills piled up, and the bank letters came, and one cold winter's morning, his father sold Aurelia to Ashcroft Hall to keep the family from losing the farm outright. Finn had watched from the upstairs window, hands pressed to the glass, as Lady Victoria's horse trailer rumbled down the drive. He'd never forgotten the look in Aurelia's eyes as she was led away, a mixture of confusion and hurt that pierced deeper than any goodbye. Afterward, Finn had stopped riding altogether, the barn left empty and silent as his family unraveled around him. Losing her. It felt like losing Mom all over again, Finn admitted, voice rough. Dad couldn't look me in the eye for weeks. I tried not to blame him, but I did. He scrubbed at his face, frustration bubbling up. It's stupid, right? Getting so attached to a horse. Alice shook her head. Not stupid. You loved her. That kind of love sticks with you, even when everything else falls apart. They sat in quiet understanding, the years between them shrinking until it felt like they were just kids again, hiding out in the hayloft, telling secrets by flashlight. Outside, the sun crept higher, painting long golden stripes across the wooden floor. Aurelia stirred, blinking sleepily, her gaze settling on Finn. He smiled, reaching out to stroke her nose. I'm here, he whispered, more to himself than anyone. Alice drew in a deep breath. What do we do now? Finn shook his head. We wait. She needs to rest. When she's better, maybe we find someone who will help. Someone who won't just hand her back to Lady Victoria for a reward. Alice raised an eyebrow. You think there's anyone like that left? Finn's jaw set. There has to be. At that moment, Uncle Hugh stuck his head through the door, his face shadowed by worry. You two might want to see this, he grunted, tossing Finn a newspaper still damp from the morning dew. The headline screamed across the front page. Champion Mare vanishes from charity gala. Reward offered, suspects sought. Below, a still from the ITV broadcast showed Aurelia leaping the fence, lightning illuminating her like some mythical creature. Finn's chest tightened. They're gonna come looking, he said quietly. Alice's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and swore under her breath. You're already famous, Finn. There's videos all over the internet. People think someone stole her. Finn's pulse jumped. Do they know it was me? Alice shook her head. Not yet, but it won't take long. Finn paced the length of the boathouse, anger and fear twisting together. He didn't want to be a thief. He didn't want to run. All he wanted was for Aurelia to be safe, to have some small corner of the world where no one could sell her, hurt her, or use her for headlines. But reality pressed in on all sides, relentless as the rising sun. Still, in the hush of the boathouse, the memories gave him strength. Every scrape, every triumph, every long night he'd spent talking to Aurelia when the world outside felt impossible. Maybe that was enough to keep fighting. Maybe it was enough to keep believing that lost things could find their way home. Alice squeezed his hand, steady and sure. Whatever happens, I'm with you. Finn managed a smile. Thanks. I think we're gonna need all the help we can get. Outside, the world waited, uncertain, dangerous, and watching. But for one fragile moment, in the company of an old friend and a wounded champion, hope felt real again. For a little while, it almost felt like the world had paused for Finn, Alice, and Uncle Hugh, hiding away in the damp calm of the boathouse by Windermere. Aurelia rested better now, her wound healing, her breathing deeper each day. Finn and Alice rotated shifts, bringing her water and slices of apple, brushing the dried mud from her golden coat, speaking softly about the future, as if those gentle words might keep trouble at bay. But the outside world refused to wait. The morning after the news headline, just as the mist was lifting off the lake, a pair of strangers showed up on the public footpath near the boathouse. They weren't from the village. Their accents were sharp, southern, and their matching windbreakers looked brand new. They snapped photos of the view, then of the boathouse, then of something Finn couldn't see behind the reeds. Tourists, Uncle Hugh grunted, watching from the kitchen window. Or so they say. He didn't like the look of their car, the expensive camera gear, the way they whispered behind hands as they scrolled through pictures. Finn tried to brush it off, but later, as the sun climbed higher, Alice called him to the back of the boathouse and pointed to her phone, her thumb trembling over the screen. Look at this, she whispered, posted less than an hour ago. She showed Finn an Instagram story from a popular London travel blog. A blurry photo of Aurelia's golden silhouette at the forest's edge, captioned, Spotted Wild Palomino by Windermere, Lost Horse Jacria Cumbria Adventure. The post was already climbing in likes and shares. Finn's stomach turned cold. How did they get that close? Alice shook her head, frustration bubbling over. People share everything online. They probably thought it was just a funny local mystery. But look, the comments. She scrolled through them. Is this the lost £1,000,000 mare from the news? That's Aurelia. There's a huge reward. Finn's hands tightened around the phone. They'll come here. Lady Victoria, the press, everyone. It happened faster than Finn could have imagined. Within hours, the Daily Mail had picked up the story. Reporters flooded into Cumbria, cameras slung over their shoulders, chasing every rumor. Ashcroft Hall's PR team went into overdrive, releasing a statement through every channel. Champion lost? $200,000 reward for the safe return of Aurelia, property of Lady Victoria Ashcroft. The language was clinical, cold. The message was clear. They wanted the horse back, and they would spare no expense. For the first time, Finn felt a different kind of fear. The fear of being hunted, not just by police or animal control, but by neighbors, strangers, even friends desperate for the kind of money that could change their lives. Rumors swirled in the village. Some folks said Aurelia had been stolen for ransom. Others whispered about criminal gangs or animal rights vigilantes. Someone started a Facebook group, and every wild sighting from Windermere to Manchester was posted with shaky cell phone video and half-baked theories. Lady Victoria herself appeared on BBC Radio, her voice imperious as ever. Aurelia is not just a horse. She is a champion, a symbol of British excellence. Her return is of utmost importance, both for her well-being and for the prestige of Ashcroft Hall. I urge the public to help us, and I will pursue all legal avenues to ensure justice is done. She didn't mention Finn or his family, or what losing Aurelia had cost them. Worse still, the narrative began to twist. Finn read comments online, hateful, ignorant things, accusing him by name after someone recognized his jacket from the ITV footage. Anonymous accounts called for his arrest. Others painted him as a folk hero, a modern-day Robin Hood stealing from the rich to give hope to the forgotten. The story no longer belonged to him, or even to Aurelia. It belonged to the algorithms and the outrage, to whoever could shout the loudest. Barrister Dr. Jasmine Khan, a renowned human rights lawyer, reached out to Finn through Alice. "You need protection, Finn," she warned over a crackling WhatsApp call. "They're threatening legal action. I can represent you pro bono, but you mustn't speak to the press. Not yet." Her voice was calm, reassuring. "You did the right thing by helping Aurelia, but this is about more than just one horse. It's about who gets to decide what's right." Meanwhile, Finn's father called for the first time in weeks. His voice was strained, worn thin. "Son, you need to think about the farm. If they find out you're involved, they might take everything. Be careful. Please." Finn felt the old ache, the familiar guilt and longing. "I'm not giving her up, Dad," he said quietly. "Not again." By the end of the week, pressure mounted on all sides. The local paper published an editorial questioning the Ashcroft family's right to claim Aurelia as mere property. Animal welfare activists began showing up at the gates of Ashcroft Hall with signs. "Let Aurelia choose." Even schoolchildren sent in drawings of a golden horse leaping free. But for every show of support, there were double the threats. Anonymous tips to animal control, emails to Uncle Hugh's marina, police cars parked on the lane pretending to check for speeding. Finn and Alice started sleeping in shifts, hiding whenever footsteps crunched on the gravel outside. Sometimes, in the dead of night, Finn would lie awake listening to Aurelia's breath and wonder if he'd made a terrible mistake, if all he'd done was make her a target again. And still, through all of it, Aurelia began to heal. With each day she grew stronger, her eyes losing some of their haunted wildness. Finn saw the old spark returning, the flick of her ears when he whistled, the way she nudged his pocket for treats. In those moments, all the fear and chaos faded. There was only the bond they'd always shared, stubborn, unbreakable, forged in loss and hope. The world outside raged on, spinning faster and louder. But inside the boathouse, Finn made himself a promise. He wouldn't let the noise drown out what truly mattered. For Aurelia, for his family, for everyone who'd ever been told they were powerless, he would hold on. The storm was building, but he would not run. Not this time. By the fifth morning, the calm around Windermere had thinned to a thread. Finn woke before sunrise, uneasy, the old boathouse colder than usual. Aurelia nickered softly as he brushed her mane, and for a few precious minutes, it felt like nothing outside those four walls could touch them. But in his gut, Finn sensed the shift. That invisible line when hiding turns into waiting for the inevitable. The roads outside had grown busier each day. Cars crawling by at odd hours. Unfamiliar faces loitering near the dock. The press still lingered in the village, prowling for new angles. Uncle Hugh kept the radio low and his boat keys closer than ever, warily scanning every knock or phone call. Alice was glued to her laptop, feeding updates to Jasmine Khan, the only lifeline Finn trusted beyond this tiny circle. The sun had barely cleared the treetops when trouble arrived. At first, Finn thought it was just another fishing boat, but then he heard tires crunching on gravel, voices rising, not friendly, not local. Hugh peered through the blinds. "That's not the paperboy," he muttered. Outside, two police cruisers blocked the lane. Behind them came a van marked Animal Control, and trailing in their wake, a pair of BBC reporters shouldering cameras. Finn's heart hammered so hard he thought Aurelia would sense it. "They found us!" Alice's voice shook. "Finn, we should—" She didn't finish, because suddenly heavy boots stomped across the dock and fists pounded at the door. "Open up! Cumbria Police, we have a warrant!" The world contracted to the sound of Aurelia's anxious shuffling and Finn's own shallow breathing. Uncle Hugh squared his shoulders. "Let me handle the door. Finn, keep her calm. Alice, get those vet papers ready. Stall for time if you can." He yanked the door open. In the threshold, a tall officer flashed a badge. "We're here to investigate reports of a missing horse. Step aside, sir." Before Hugh could argue, a second officer and two animal control agents squeezed inside, eyes scanning every corner. Aurelia sensed the strangers immediately. She reared, eyes rolling white, nostrils flaring with panic. The smaller of the animal control agents crept forward, murmuring, rope looped in hand. "Easy now, girl. Come on, sweetheart." Aurelia whinnied, muscles trembling, retreating until her haunches pressed against the wall. Finn stepped between them without thinking, his hands up, body blocking the agent's path. "Let me calm her. Please, she'll hurt herself." The officer glared. "Step back, son. Let the professionals do their job." But Finn held his ground, voice low but steady. "If you rush her, someone's going to get hurt." It happened in a flash. The agent lunged for Aurelia's halter, but she lashed out, hooves kicking against the floorboards. The man yelped, stumbling backward, his shoulder twisting unnaturally as he crashed into a pile of tarps. A hush fell, broken only by Aurelia's frantic breathing and the faint buzz of a BBC camera powering up. For a split second, everything hung in the balance. Then Finn moved, slow and deliberate. He stepped to Aurelia's side, pressed his palm to her neck, and whispered the way he had as a child. "I'm here. It's all right. Easy, girl. Easy." Aurelia's eyes softened. She lowered her head and nuzzled Finn's chest, her trembling quieting. The room went silent, the officers and agents frozen, cameras trained on the scene. A BBC reporter, recognizing the drama, signaled for her crew to stream the moment live. All across the UK, viewers watched as a so-called horse thief calmed a million-pound champion with nothing more than trust and love. Hashtags erupted online. Let Aurelia choose, and Finn and Aurelia soared to the top of social feeds. Public opinion, so quick to judge before, now teetered on a knife's edge. Officer Barnes, the ranking cop, cleared his throat. "We're taking the Mare into custody, son. There's a legal process for this now. You'll get your say, but for now, she comes with us." Finn's voice shook, not with fear but determination. "Just let me walk her out. She trusts me." Barnes nodded reluctantly. "Fine, but no heroics." Alice handed Finn the old lead rope. Finn took it, fighting tears, and turned to Aurelia. "Come on, girl. Just a little walk, okay?" He led her outside, past the sea of flashing lights and microphones. Reporters shouted questions. Animal control hovered, and a BBC cameraman broadcast the whole scene to thousands. Aurelia pressed her muzzle into Finn's chest, trusting him even as strangers closed in on every side. As the police van's ramp lowered, Aurelia balked, glancing back at Finn. For one gut-wrenching second, Finn almost bolted, almost risked everything for a wild, hopeless dash into the woods. But he saw Uncle Hugh's grave nod, Alice's tearful eyes, the swarm of cameras. He swallowed the urge. "It's all right, girl. I'll find you. I promise." Aurelia loaded into the van, the doors slammed shut, and the moment was gone. The officers moved in on Finn, not with handcuffs but with stern warnings. "There'll be a court hearing. You'll have a chance to speak. Don't leave town, son." The BBC reporter, shaking Finn's hand, whispered, "The whole country just saw that. They're not going to forget." As the convoy pulled away, the Let Aurelia Choose hashtag exploded. Across the internet, support flooded in. Lady Victoria, watching the broadcast from Ashcroft Hall, was silent. She withdrew her legal team, for now. A different kind of fight was coming. One not decided by brute force or quick money, but by voices, stories, and the truth the cameras had captured for all to see. Finn, exhausted, watched the lake shimmer under the morning sun. He'd lost Aurelia again, but not like before. This time, the world was watching. This time, hope hadn't disappeared. It had just changed shape. The days after the raid bled into one another, slow and heavy. The world seemed to spin faster, but for Finn, everything moved in a fog. The boathouse stood empty, Aurelia's stall swept clean. The faint smell of oats and hay, all that lingered of the life they'd shared for those fleeting days. Finn found himself retracing his steps again and again, haunted by the echo of hooves, the creak of the dock. Alice's worried voice urging him to eat. Uncle Hugh's silent hand on his shoulder. But nothing eased the ache of loss, or the fear of what was coming next. He didn't have long to wait. Within a week, a letter arrived, official, heavy, sealed with the crest of the Lancaster County Magistrates' Court. Finn's hands shook as he read the summons. A hearing, scheduled for the following Thursday, to determine the fate of Aurelia and the question of criminal liability. Attached was a statement from Lady Victoria Ashcroft, a mountain of affidavits, and the formal claim for Aurelia's immediate return to Ashcroft Hall. A single clinical line in the paperwork said more than any speech. Registered owner, Lady Victoria Ashcroft. Barrister Dr. Jasmine Khan arrived from Manchester that night, traveling up by train, her briefcase overflowing with documents and law books. She was younger than Finn expected, her hair wrapped in a neat scarf, her gaze quick and kind, but impossibly sharp. She sat Finn and Alice at the kitchen table, Uncle Hugh pouring everyone strong tea as the rain drummed on the roof. "Listen carefully," Jasmine said, spreading the papers out between them. This is a classic property dispute, but with one enormous complication. Aurelia is not just a horse. She's a living being, and more importantly, she's demonstrated clear emotional bonds and preference. Most of English law still treats animals as property, but we're going to challenge that. We're going to argue for her welfare, her feelings. It won't be easy, and the other side has money, influence, everything. But we have something they don't: the truth and the world's attention. Finn nodded, biting his lip. Will I go to jail? Jasmine squeezed his hand. That's not likely. You didn't steal her, Finn. You rescued her from danger. Our case is about what's best for Aurelia, not about punishing you. Alice smiled, her faith in Jasmine's voice giving Finn the first hope he'd felt since the police van took Aurelia away. The day of the hearing dawned cold and gray, the wind driving clouds across the courthouse steps. Reporters packed the entryway, microphones outstretched, flashes popping as Finn, Alice, and Jasmine slipped through security. Lady Victoria arrived moments later, flanked by her attorneys, dressed in a tailored navy suit that matched her steely gaze. She didn't spare Finn a glance, her eyes fixed on the doors ahead. The courtroom was packed. Spectators overflowed into the hall, some holding homemade signs. Let Aurelia choose, others reading Finn's name, others simply blank with anticipation. The judge, an older man with a tired face, called for order. This case is unusual, he intoned, and has attracted considerable public interest. Let's remember what's at stake: the law and the welfare of the animal in question. Lady Victoria's barrister spoke first, her voice ringing clear and cold. My client is the lawful owner of Aurelia, purchased in good faith and maintained at considerable expense. There can be no doubt as to the chain of title. Whatever affection Mr. Morgan may claim, the horse is registered property, and property must be returned. She cited precedent, quoted statutes, her words a wall of logic and history. Jasmine rose, her presence somehow both gentle and fierce. Your Honor, we do not dispute Lady Ashcroft's legal ownership. What we challenge is the narrowness of the law, that a living being of such intelligence and emotional depth should be treated as no different from a car or a parcel of land. Aurelia is not a commodity. She has memories, preferences, bonds of affection. Her distress at Ashcroft Hall is documented by witnesses and video. She sought out Mr. Morgan, accepted his comfort, and calmed only in his presence. We submit that her welfare demands consideration, and that to force her return is to cause further suffering. The judge listened, frowning, as Jasmine played the BBC footage. Finn calming Aurelia, her obvious panic at the hands of strangers, the moment she pressed her nose into his chest. Lady Victoria's attorneys objected, irrelevant, emotionally manipulative, but the judge allowed it, citing the extraordinary nature of the case. Animal welfare experts took the stand, some from Ashcroft Hall, others from independent sanctuaries. Mr. Hargreaves, the head trainer, admitted under cross-examination that Aurelia had been withdrawn and stopped eating after her return. She's grieving, he confessed, his voice cracking. She misses Finn. It's plain as day. Lady Victoria remained rigid, her hands clenched tight, but even she seemed rattled as the crowd murmured. Still, the letter of the law was not on Finn's side. The judge, in his final remarks, sighed. We live in a changing world, Ms. Khan, but I must rule on the law as it stands. Registered ownership is clear. For the time being, Aurelia must be returned to Ashcroft Hall. However, I order continued monitoring by animal welfare authorities. I expect this matter will not end here. The blow hit Finn like a physical thing. Alice gripped his shoulder as Jasmine leaned in, whispering, "This is only the beginning. We'll appeal. We have public opinion. And that's power, too." But as Aurelia was led away from the courthouse, eyes hollow, head low, Finn felt himself shatter. He watched through rain-blurred glass as Lady Victoria's trailer drove off, the promise of justice swallowed by bureaucracy and tradition. For the first time since his mother's funeral, Finn allowed himself to cry in front of strangers. He didn't care who saw. He had fought for Aurelia, given everything, and it still wasn't enough. Jasmine placed a gentle hand on his back. "She needs you strong, Finn. This isn't over, not by a long shot." Alice's eyes brimmed with tears, but her voice was certain. "We'll fight. Together." Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the courthouse banners. The world was watching, and Finn knew the storm was only getting started. But beneath the grief, beneath the outrage, a new determination sparked. They'd taken Aurelia, but they hadn't taken hope. Days blurred together after the hearing. Finn felt like he was moving through water, each hour heavier than the last. Back at Ashcroft Hall, Aurelia vanished behind stone walls and locked gates, her name now a hashtag, her fate just another update on news tickers and viral posts. Finn spent sleepless nights at Uncle Hugh's boathouse, hunched over Alice's laptop, scrolling endlessly for any sign, any new photo or mention of Aurelia. His phone chimed with constant notifications, offers from journalists, threats from strangers, messages of support from around the world. But nothing eased the ache in his chest. Alice tried to keep him grounded, bringing food he barely touched, urging him to sleep, to fight for himself as much as for Aurelia. Jasmine Khan called every day, her tone brisk and full of purpose. "The appeal is in motion, Finn. We'll need all the public support we can muster." But even Jasmine's optimism couldn't chase away the helplessness that clung to Finn like fog. It was Alice who first noticed the shift. She scrolled through social media, frowning, then pushed the screen toward Finn. "Look, someone posted a photo from inside Ashcroft Hall. Aurelia looks terrible." The image was grainy, but unmistakable. Aurelia, her once golden coat dull, ribs showing, eyes hollow. The caption read, "Champion or prisoner?" Comments flooded in, angry, heartbroken, demanding answers. Finn clenched his fists. "They're killing her in there. She's not just property, she's family." The words choked out, raw with loss and fury. "Then let's show them," Alice said, suddenly determined. "Let's show everyone what she means. To you, to this country, to every kid who's ever loved an animal." She rummaged through boxes in Uncle Hugh's attic and dug out old VHS tapes, school notebooks, family photos. Together, they pieced together Aurelia's story. Finn at 6 years old, laughing on Aurelia's back. Their first blue ribbon at the county fair. Winter mornings with frost in their breath and sunlight spilling over the fields. With Jasmine's guidance, Alice shot new footage on her phone. Finn's voice telling the story. Neighbors and friends recalling the bright, stubborn horse who once roamed the village. Kids sketching pictures of the golden mare. They edited it into a short film, set it to music, and posted it to YouTube with the hashtag #SheStillRemembers. Within hours, the views climbed into the thousands, then tens of thousands. Comments poured in from every corner of the world. Strangers shared their own stories of love and loss. The dog who waited at the door every day. The rescue cat who changed a life. The pony who carried a lonely kid through grief. The country's pain and hope pooled together in a tidal wave of empathy. The film reached Parliament within 48 hours. A local MP, spurred by his own daughter's tears, stood up and called for an emergency debate. Should animals be treated as mere possessions, or do we owe them something greater? Is it not time our laws reflected the emotional lives of the creatures in our care? An online petition began to circulate. Aurelia deserves better. And within 2 days, over 150,000 people had signed. Their comments filled pages. I lost my best friend to a system that never cared. My daughter cries every night for Aurelia. Let Finn and Aurelia be together. The national news ran segments on the case, replaying the footage of Finn calming Aurelia, Lady Victoria's stony silence, the awkward statements from Ashcroft Hall's press office. News anchors debated the law, animal welfare experts weighed in, even school children were interviewed with wide, earnest eyes. The story stopped being just about one horse or one boy. It became a reckoning, a challenge to old ways of thinking, a demand for compassion in a world hungry for justice. Inside Ashcroft Hall, the pressure built. Mr. Hargreaves, the head trainer, quietly reached out to Finn through Alice, his voice trembling. She won't eat, lad. She stands by the fence every morning, staring out at the road like she's waiting for you. Lady Victoria won't hear of letting you visit, but I thought you should know. Finn's chest ached with helpless gratitude. Thank you, sir. Tell her I haven't given up. It wasn't just the public that was moved. Local equine therapists, veterinarians, even other wealthy estate owners offered support. Some volunteered expert testimony for Jasmine's case. Others sent care packages to Finn and Alice. Food, hay, even homemade banners. Uncle Hugh found himself a minor celebrity at the marina, fielding questions from sailors and strangers who'd never heard of Ashcroft Hall before, but now rallied around a boy and his horse. At night, Finn walked the edge of the lake, the phone pressed to his ear, listening for Jasmine's updates and reading messages from people he'd never meet. I lost my mom too. Aurelia's lucky to have you fighting for her. My son's autistic, and your video made him smile for the first time in weeks. Every word stoked the fire in Finn's heart, turned pain into purpose. Still, Aurelia's condition worsened. The news showed images of her gaunt body, hollow eyes, drooping head. Viewers wept openly on live TV. The Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons released a statement. To deny animals the company they choose is to inflict needless harm. We urge the courts to consider the emotional welfare of Aurelia. The petition grew. Social media raged. Parliament scheduled a debate on animal sentience. Through it all, Lady Victoria remained silent in public. But late one night, Finn received a letter, unsigned, delivered by hand to the boathouse. Inside was a single sentence. I see her suffering. Perhaps I've been wrong? Finn stared at the words until the sun rose. Maybe it was hope. Maybe it was a sign that things could still change. The world was watching. The tide was turning. And somewhere inside Ashcroft Hall, Aurelia was waiting, fading, but not forgotten. The world outside Ashcroft Hall was restless. News crews parked on the long gravel drive, protesters clutching banners in the rain, camera flashes popping even in the dark. But inside the hall, for the first time in weeks, Lady Victoria Ashcroft found herself unable to sleep. She sat alone in her library, the old grandfather clock ticking away the midnight hour, her hands curled around a cup of untouched tea. The room was filled with reminders of another life. Trophies, faded family portraits, a silver-framed photograph of herself as a girl, astride a pony nearly as golden as Aurelia. A storm churned outside, wind battering the windows, branches scraping the ancient stone walls. Something in that wind called to her, a sound that felt like memory itself. Lady Victoria stood, hesitated, then wrapped her shawl around her shoulders and slipped into the night. The path to the stables was slick with rain. She could see the flicker of security guards' torches patrolling the grounds, but they didn't see her as she ducked through the side entrance, careful to keep to the shadows. The scent of hay and horse sweat greeted her, mingled with something sharper, a note of fear, of sorrow. For a moment, she stood very still, letting her eyes adjust, letting her heart remember. Aurelia stood at the far end of the aisle, separated from the other horses by a heavy gate. Her golden coat looked washed out, her sides sunken, her head drooping so low it nearly touched the straw. She barely flicked an ear as Lady Victoria approached, her eyes dull and unfocused. It was nothing like the proud, fiery creature who dazzled crowds and judges. Nothing like the wild, triumphant horse who'd leapt that fence on the night of the storm. Victoria stepped closer. Every footfall an apology she didn't know how to say out loud. She remembered herself at 10 years old, clinging to the neck of her first pony, Bonnie, giggling as they cantered through the misty dawn. She remembered the ache when her father, cold and practical, sold Bonnie away without warning. She'd screamed, pleaded, sobbed for days, but the only answer she ever got was, "That's life, Victoria. You'll have another one." But she never did. Not like Bonnie. The past pressed in, thick and unyielding. Victoria looked at Aurelia, saw the same hollow pain in her eyes. She knelt, ignoring the damp, and reached out. Aurelia flinched, but didn't move away. For the first time, Victoria spoke without her usual iron certainty. "I'm sorry," she whispered, voice shaking. "I thought I was doing what was right. For the hall, for the family, for myself. I never wanted this. I never meant for you to suffer." Aurelia stood silent, the storm outside echoing in the rafters. Victoria bowed her head. In the stillness, she heard a sound, soft, hesitant, almost a sigh, as Aurelia nosed her hand, just for a moment, as if accepting the gesture. As she rose, Victoria glanced at the tack room window. There, on a high shelf, she saw a faded photograph tucked between rows of dusty trophies. She pulled it down, herself as a child, hugging Bonnie, sunlight in her hair, grinning like she owned the world. She'd forgotten that picture even existed. Something cracked in her chest, years of pride and old wounds splitting open. She stood for a long time, picture in hand, watching Aurelia breathe. The wind rattled the shutters, and Victoria made a decision. She couldn't let another child, Finn or anyone else, lose what she'd lost, just because the law said property mattered more than love. By the time the storm began to ease, Victoria had changed out of her muddy boots, grabbed her car keys, and slipped quietly from the house. She didn't wake her staff or call her lawyers. Instead, she drove through the sleeping countryside, headlights cutting a lonely path north, toward Windermere. She didn't know exactly what she would say, or if Finn would even listen. All she knew was that she couldn't let the morning come without trying. It was nearly 4 a.m. when she arrived at Uncle Hugh's boathouse, the old Volvo crunching to a stop on the gravel. The place was dark, but a sliver of light showed beneath the kitchen door. Victoria hesitated for a long moment, then knocked, softly, not as Lady Ashcroft, but as Victoria, the girl who still mourned her own lost pony. Finn answered, blinking sleep from his eyes, surprise and suspicion mixing on his face. "Lady Victoria?" His voice was wary. She didn't bother with pleasantries. "May I come in?" He stepped aside, and she entered the warmth, clutching the faded photograph in her hand. Uncle Hugh and Alice appeared in the doorway, silent and watchful. Victoria sat at the table, struggling for words. "I went to see Aurelia tonight," she began, her voice quiet. "And I realized she's not coming back. Not really. Not the way she was. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I see now I was only repeating my father's mistakes." Finn watched her, not sure if he should believe her, hope warring with old pain. "So what happens now?" he asked. Victoria stared at the photograph, her eyes misting over. "Now, I have to do the right thing. No more hiding behind the law or tradition. I want to talk to you, Finn, about giving Aurelia the chance she deserves, about something better than ownership, something like healing, not just for her, but for all of us." Uncle Hugh poured tea, the kettle whistling softly in the background. Alice squeezed Finn's hand. For the first time in weeks, hope felt possible, fragile as dawn, but real. The storm had broken. The world was still waiting, but inside the boathouse, for one fleeting moment, it was quiet enough for second chances. Morning broke slowly over Windermere, washing the world in a pale gold that promised new beginnings. For the first time in weeks, Finn woke without that crushing sense of dread. He lay still for a moment, listening to the quiet murmur of voices in the kitchen below. Lady Victoria, Uncle Hugh, Alice, all speaking low and earnest. He pulled on his sweatshirt, heart racing with a nervous, fragile hope, and descended the narrow stairs to find the future waiting at the table. Lady Victoria looked different this morning. The lines on her face seemed softer, the steely resolve replaced by something uncertain, vulnerable. She had barely slept, but there was a clarity in her eyes as she set her cup down and gestured for Finn to join them. Alice slid a plate of toast his way. Uncle Hugh nodded, his usual gruffness gentled by pride. Victoria took a deep breath. "I spent most of the night thinking about Aurelia, and about you, Finn. About all the ways we've tried to hold on to things, even when it's time to let go. The world has changed around us. I see that now." She pushed the faded photo across the table, the one of herself as a child with her lost pony, and Finn saw the truth in her trembling hands. "I don't want to be the villain in someone else's story anymore." Finn's voice was uncertain. "What does that mean for Aurelia?" Lady Victoria nodded, resolved. "It means I want to make things right, not just with you, but with her, and with every person who's followed this story and believed we could be better." She turned to Uncle Hugh and Alice. "I can't erase what's happened, but I can choose what comes next." By noon, word had spread. Lady Victoria called her legal team, the press, and, at Jasmine Khan's urging, the management of Bramblewood Equine Therapy Centre outside Manchester. The Bramblewood staff had followed Aurelia's story like the rest of the country, their inboxes flooded with messages and pleas from supporters. When Victoria offered to donate not only Aurelia, but £500,000 to the centre's programs for disabled and at-risk youth, their response was stunned gratitude. "I only have one condition," Victoria said quietly, her voice firm on the phone as Sky News recorded every word, "and that's that Finn Morgan be given the opportunity to join Bramblewood's youth training program as an assistant coach. No publicity stunts, no speeches, just a chance to start again, to put all this pain toward something good." The director agreed instantly. Within an hour, the announcement was scheduled for live television, the world invited to witness the moment hope returned. The press conference was held on the front lawn of Ashcroft Hall, where so much had begun. Reporters lined the drive, their lenses aimed not at a scandal, but at the promise of something better. Lady Victoria stood before them, flanked by Jasmine Khan and the Bramblewood team. Finn, hands sweating, stood at her side. The entire country seemed to hold its breath. Victoria spoke first, her voice carrying both regret and resolve. Today, I am announcing the donation of Aurelia, the mare who's inspired so much debate and hope, to Bramblewood Equine Therapy Centre. I am also establishing an endowment for their programs, in Aurelia's name, to support children and families for generations to come. This is not just about one horse. It's about recognizing that compassion and healing matter more than possession. Finn, would you like to say something? Finn looked out at the sea of faces, cameras, journalists, children with homemade signs, and found his voice. Aurelia isn't just a champion, and she's not just my horse or Lady Victoria's. She's a friend to everyone who's ever needed a second chance. I'm grateful to Bramblewood for letting her help kids like me, and I hope we all remember what it feels like to fight for something worth loving. Jasmine took the mic for a moment, her eyes shining. The law may be slow to change, but our hearts aren't. Today is proof that when enough people stand up for what's right, even the oldest rules can bend toward justice. There was applause, some tears, and a few skeptical shouts from the back. Change never comes easy, and some wounds take longer to heal. But the spirit on the lawn was one of hope, of a burden lifted at last. By afternoon, a special van arrived to take Aurelia to Bramblewood, with Finn riding in the back to keep her calm. The trip took hours, through rolling countryside, past school children waving signs, through villages where people spilled out of pubs and cafes to catch a glimpse of the golden mare who had captured the country's heart. At Bramblewood, Aurelia stepped gingerly onto soft grass, her eyes wide but clear, ears forward as she took in her new home. Finn led her toward the open paddock, Bramblewood staff and a group of children waiting quietly. Some were in wheelchairs, others shyly held ribbons and apples, all watching with the hope of kids who know what it means to long for healing. Aurelia paused, then dropped her head to graze, the sun catching her coat so she almost glowed. Finn knelt beside her, tears running down his cheeks as he laughed, relief overwhelming all the months of fear. Alice hugged him tight. Uncle Hugh clapped him on the back, and even Lady Victoria, standing apart, wiped her eyes and smiled, a real, honest smile, free of all the weight she'd carried. That evening, for the first time in weeks, Aurelia ate her fill, her appetite returning as she settled into her new life. The children of Bramblewood gathered to stroke her mane, whispering secrets and wishes only she would ever hear. Finn helped muck stalls, told stories, and finally, after what felt like a lifetime, felt himself starting to belong again. Sky News aired a montage of the day's events, closing with Aurelia and Finn standing together as the sun dipped below the horizon, hope shimmering in the golden light. Sometimes healing begins with a single honest choice, a gift given not out of guilt or pressure, but because it's right. And sometimes, just sometimes, the world listens. The first dawn at Bramblewood Equine Therapy Centre broke soft and pink over the fields, carrying the scent of new hay and wildflowers. Finn awoke to the peaceful hush of horses nickering in their stalls and children's laughter echoing up from the paddocks. For the first time in what felt like years, his dreams had not been filled with loss or longing, but with hope. He pulled on his boots, stepped outside, and paused to let the quiet settle in his bones. This place didn't just feel like a sanctuary for Aurelia. It felt like home. Across the pasture, Aurelia grazed in the morning sun, her coat returning to its old golden shine, her movements easy and unhurried. A few weeks had passed since the press conference at Ashcroft Hall, and the world's attention had shifted, as it always does. But for those at Bramblewood, and for the thousands who'd watched and wept and signed their names to Aurelia's cause, the lessons lingered. The wounds had begun to heal, slow but sure. Every day, Finn worked alongside the Bramblewood team, cleaning stalls, leading trail rides, learning the ropes of equine therapy. The children took to him quickly, especially those who saw something of themselves in his quiet strength and stubborn hope. One little girl, Sophia, clung to Aurelia's mane and beamed at Finn. "Is she really magic?" she whispered, as if afraid the truth might shatter the spell. Finn smiled, kneeling beside her. "She's magic because she remembers everyone who's ever loved her. That's her secret." The work wasn't always easy. There were hard days, too, moments when the past snuck up on Finn, or when Aurelia startled at a sudden noise, her old anxiety flickering through. But each setback was met with gentle hands and patient voices, reminders that healing, like trust, isn't built in a day. Lady Victoria visited often, but never as the imperious figure she'd once been. She came quietly, sometimes bringing treats for the horses, sometimes just watching from the fence. She talked to Finn about everything except the past, asking about his plans, his dreams. She even apologized, awkward and halting, but sincere. "You taught me something, Finn," she said one chilly morning. "That being a caretaker isn't about control. It's about compassion and about letting go." She sent regular donations, helped organize fundraisers, and over time became a quiet advocate for animal welfare, her own name now tied to something more lasting than any family crest. Alice, too, had found her place. She wrote an article about Aurelia's journey that was picked up by national papers, her byline now a symbol of honest storytelling and activism. She continued to document life at Bramblewood, the faces of the children whose lives had changed because one horse and one stubborn boy refused to give up. In every photo, Finn noticed, there was laughter, genuine, unburdened, bright. The law was slower to change, but the debate that started with Aurelia spread far and wide. Parliament convened hearings on animal sentience, and a new bill, Aurelia's Law, was introduced, seeking to redefine how animals were treated in matters of ownership and welfare. Jasmine Khan was invited to speak before a committee, using Finn and Aurelia's story as a rallying cry. "We cannot call ourselves a just society," she argued, "if we fail to recognize the bonds of feeling and memory that tie us to the creatures in our care." In the countryside, at Bramblewood, the headlines faded, but the real change grew steady and deep. Finn and Aurelia became the heart of the center's work. Together, they led groups of children, some with disabilities, some lost to grief or hardship, on gentle rides along the lake. Finn taught the kids how to brush Aurelia's mane, how to listen for her soft huff of approval, how to trust the slow, rhythmic calm of her presence. On the anniversary of Aurelia's arrival, the center held an open house. Families from all over came to celebrate, not just the victory, but the journey. Lady Victoria gave a short speech, her voice stronger than it had been in years. "If there's one thing this year has taught me," she said, "it's that our greatest strength is in what we choose to give. Our trust, our forgiveness, our love. Sometimes the hardest thing is to let go of old ways and let something new and good grow in their place." As the sun dipped low, Finn led Aurelia out along the lakeshore, a small parade of children and volunteers following. Laughter echoed across the water. In the golden light, Aurelia seemed to shine, head held high, every step a testament to survival, healing, and the possibility of new beginnings. At the water's edge, Finn paused, looking back at the faces, smiling, open, full of life. He realized he wasn't alone anymore. He never had been. The story closed not with a grand victory, but with a lesson shared in quiet moments, in the gentle press of a muzzle against a trembling hand, in the joy of children who'd learned to hope again. Finn understood now. Loss isn't an ending. It's a beginning, a call to open your heart wider, to fight for what matters, and to let love find its way back, even through the longest storm. As night fell, the last image lingered. Finn riding Aurelia at the head of the group, children laughing behind him. The world hushed in awe and gratitude. His voice carried over the lake, steady and true. When you love enough, the memories will always find their way home. The screen faded to black, a gentle reminder for all who'd listened. Share this story, support those who heal, and remember what we give to each other in trust and care is what truly lasts.